The millionaire came home late and discovered a black housekeeper asking him to stay quiet. Here's why. Marcus Beaumont hadn't planned on coming back so early that night. The reception had ended sooner than expected, a dull evening filled with champagne, political talk, and people who measured success by gold cufflinks and tax loopholes. He had smiled, nodded, written a 6-figure check to a children's hospital, and left without saying a word. It was nearly midnight when he entered his luxury apartment. He loosened his tie with one hand, the other closing the door behind him as quietly as possible. He wanted peace, a drink, maybe 5 minutes of silence before collapsing into a bed he hadn't touched in 4 days, but he had barely stepped inside when someone grabbed him from behind, a hand pressed against his mouth. Marcus tensed. Instinct screamed to fight back, but before he could react, a female voice, trembling and familiar, whispered urgently in his ear, "Don't say a word." His heart rate slowed enough for him to recognize Celeste, the new employee hired 2 weeks earlier, after the previous one had quit without notice. He had barely spoken to her, barely paid attention, to be honest. But here she was with her hand over his mouth, her other arm pressed against his chest, and her breath shaking behind him. Slowly, she removed her hand. "What the hell?" he whispered, turning sharply. "Please," she said, "don't speak too loudly." Marcus looked at her carefully. She still wore the black uniform, white apron perfectly tied, white cap in her gathered hair. But her expression was no longer the same, no longer calm or unshakable as before. Her eyes were red, wet, as if she had been holding something back for hours. He stepped back, confused. "You better have a good reason." "I do," she said, cutting him off. "But it's not a burden I should have carried alone." Marcus stared at her. "What do you mean?" She glanced toward the hallway. "Your son sleepwalks. It's affecting him deeply." "What?" "He's been doing it every night since your last trip. Always around this time. I've been watching him, walking with him, taking him back to bed." Marcus's face softened. "I didn't know." "No one told me." "Because no one else has seen it," she replied. "I stay after hours to keep him safe." "You're not paid for that," he said coldly. "I know," she answered. He wanted to respond, but stayed silent. The hallway atmosphere suddenly felt heavier, charged with all the questions he had never asked. "He talks in his sleep," she said. "Sometimes he says your name, sometimes he cries." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because I didn't know if it mattered to you." "That comment," she said. "I care about my son," he said quietly. "I believe you," she replied. "But children don't feel conviction, they feel presence." He didn't respond. She continued, her voice steadier. Tonight he walked to the stairs. His eyes were open, but he wasn't awake. "I stopped him just before he reached the edge." Marcus's heart clenched. "I caught him in time," she said, "but I couldn't carry him. So I stayed with him, and when I heard the elevator, I panicked. I thought if you came in loudly, you'd frighten him. That's why I asked you to be quiet. That's why I covered your mouth." Marcus leaned back against the cold leather. Celeste stepped closer. "I know I crossed the line. I shouldn't have touched you like that." "You were trying to protect my son," he said, looking at her. "I should have thanked you." She looked down. "I didn't do it to be thanked." Marcus leaned forward, elbow on his knees. "You mentioned carrying this burden alone." She hesitated. "I'm used to it." He really looked at her this time. She was young, maybe 25. Too young to have such tired eyes, such steady hands from holding back worry. "I know I'm just an employee," she said softly, "but that little boy, he looks at me like I'm more than that, and I couldn't ignore it." "You're not just an employee," he said. She nodded without smiling. "Why not leave it to the nanny?" he asked. Celeste looked away. "The nanny comes in late, always. She says she's not a babysitter. She says he'll get over it." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. Everything he had neglected became clearer. The long hours, the business trips, love delegated like a budget line handed off to someone else. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said. "Working hard, building something for him." Celeste spoke softly. "A child doesn't need a future more than they need their present." Marcus had a secret he wasn't prepared for. At that moment, light footsteps echoed. They both turned. Gabriel was there, his son, barefoot, eyelids heavy with sleep. "Dad?" Marcus stood up. "I'm here, buddy." Celeste sighed. Walk slowly. No sudden movements. Marcus stepped forward, knelt down, opened his arms. Gabriel stumbled toward him. "I was looking for you. I'm here now," Marcus said, his voice breaking. And he meant it. For the first time in a long time, Marcus held Gabriel close, his arms tightening, as the child breathed peacefully against his shoulder. He hadn't realized how small Gabriel still was, how easily his body fit in his arms. It had been weeks since they had sat like this, maybe even longer. Too many phone calls, too many silent dinners separated by a screen. Now his son clung to him like a child afraid of waking up alone again. Celeste stayed back, watching silently. She had never tried to impose herself. Marcus finally looked up, his voice hoarse. "How many times has this happened since I started traveling?" "Every time, always after midnight, always walking like he's looking for someone," she answered softly. "It's like his body remembers what his heart doesn't understand." Marcus buried his face in Gabriel's hair. "He thinks I abandoned him." "I think he just missed you," Celeste said. "That's not the same thing." She walked past them and gently straightened a photograph hanging on the wall, an old picture of Marcus and Gabriel at the beach. "You know," she said without looking at him, "when I was little, my mother worked nights, long hours, sometimes 2 jobs. I would wait for her even though she told me to sleep. I would fall asleep by the door just to feel close when she came home." Marcus listened, still kneeling. "I didn't need presents," she continued. "I just needed her voice, her presence, a moment when our eyes met. That was enough to last another day." She turned to him. "Gabriel is always waiting at that door, Mr. Beaumont, even if it's not physical." He nodded slowly, holding Gabriel tighter. "I thought giving him everything would make up for my absence." Celeste sat across from him on the hallway bench. "Love isn't a delivery. It's not something you drop off on holidays or birthdays. It's being there in the middle of the night, when they forget their own name but remember your warmth." She wasn't preaching. She was simply stating what she knew. And Marcus, for once, didn't feel defensive. He felt humbled. Gabriel stirred, his voice weak. "Is it morning?" "Not yet, big guy," Marcus whispered. "It's still night. Everything's okay." Celeste was there, Gabriel mumbled without opening his eyes. "She held my hand." Marcus met her eyes again. "You've done more for him in 2 weeks than I have in 2 months. You don't need to say that." "Yes," he insisted, "because it's true." Celeste stood up slowly. "I'll make some tea. You both need something warm." As she headed to the kitchen, Marcus carried Gabriel back to his room, gently sliding him under the blue covers. The boy sighed in his sleep and turned toward the window. Marcus sat beside him, stroking his hair. When he returned to the kitchen, Celeste had already set out 2 cups. She was rinsing something in the sink. The lights were dimmed. The apartment was quiet. Only the hum of the refrigerator echoed. He approached her. "I'd like you to stay," he said. She didn't look up. "That's your choice." "Not just as an employee." She stopped. "I want someone in this house who sees him the way you see him, who takes care of him like a person, not just out of habit." She turned to him. "You don't need to hire love, you just need to be present." "I want to learn," he said simply. She saw the truth on his face, not desperation, not guilt, just the honesty of a father trying to start over. After a long silence, she nodded. "Then start by sitting with him every morning, even if it's just 10 minutes. Make it the first thing he sees before school. With pancakes," he added, smiling. She finally smiled back. "Bananas and a little cinnamon. That's the only way he likes them." They sat together at the table, drinking in silence, while the city glowed in the distance with its endless noise. But inside this home, everything felt calm for the first time in years. Celeste put on her coat. "Same time tomorrow?" "Earlier, if you can." She smiled again, and just before walking through the door, she said, "He doesn't need a hero, he just needs his father." She disappeared into the quiet hallway. Marcus quietly locked the door, turned toward his son's room. For once, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own home. He felt like a father, finally back home. If this story touched you, don't forget to click like and subscribe to the Stories That Matter channel to discover more moving, intense, and surprising tales. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from around the world. We love reading your messages. See you very soon. Stay kind, stay curious, and keep following us.